Coming up on today's Locked On Dodgers, the Dodgers take 3 of 4 in Colorado. James Outman had a debut for all debuts and more trade deadline talk. So that's what's on tap. So make sure to keep it Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans. Welcome to Locked On Dodgers. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 local sports daily podcast network. Locked On, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Vroom. With Vroom, you can buy a car entirely online and have it delivered straight to you, so you never have to go to a dealership again. So next time you need to buy a car, just grab your phone, go to vroom.com, and check out thousands of great cars. This is Locked On Dodgers, and you can find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. Or you can just subscribe in all those places and make it easy on yourself. And you'll never miss a day because you know we're not going to. If this is your first time listening or watching, I'm Vince Samperio. That's Jeff Snider, my co-host. And we are both lifelong Dodger fans that have spent some time covering the Dodgers in a variety of ways and continuing to cover the Dodger in a few ways. One of those ways being this podcast here, where we talk Dodgers every Monday through Friday for about 30 minutes. So strap in if you haven't been here before, and settle in if you've been here before. Then let's talk Dodgers. They went to Coors Field. Nobody came back broken, and the Dodgers took 3 out of 4. So all in all, successful weekend. We talked about last week how we just give each team 2 wins and let's not play any of the games, but it ended up working out for the Dodgers because they got 3 wins and nobody got hurt.
Yeah, evened up the season series at Coors Field. We're now officially done with Coors Field for the season. Dodgers ended up 5-5 there this year, and whatever, stupid place to play. Nobody came away injured, like you said. Although Will Smith had a couple foul balls perilously close to his no-no square on Sunday, and but he seems to have come out of it okay. He got a base hit after both of those foul balls, so hopefully he's okay, and his future children are okay. But yeah, winning 3 out of 4 in Colorado, even with the Rockies being a crappy team, you never know what to expect there. So I will take it.
Yeah, the Dodgers ended up making a trade, which we'll get into here in a little bit. But one thing of that trade was Zach McKinstry was sent out. The Dodgers had to call someone up, and they just went to the guy that was on their 40-man roster already, and James Outman. And James Outman was the star of Sunday. First major league plate appearance. He hits a 2-run home run. He finishes the day with 3 hits and 3 RBIs. And I'll just run through some of the stuff that he did. He was the only player in Dodgers franchise history to debut with a homer, 3 hits, 3 RBI, 2 runs scored. The first player since Joey Gallo to debut with 3 hits, 3 RBIs, and a home run. The only Los Angeles Dodger in franchise history with 3 hits and 3 RBI in his first major league game. He joins Jose Offerman and Ernie Coy as the only Dodgers to homer and hit 3 hits in their first career game, and the first Dodger rookie to have 3+ hits in his first career game since Mike Piazza. So all in all, with that, James Outman had himself a Sunday.
Yeah, no complaints there. It was like a dream or a day you dream about for sure. Hitting a home run in your first major league at bat. A lot of people obviously hitting it in the first pitch is the most rare thing, but hitting your first at bat, hitting a home run is, yeah, I mean, it is what you dream about. You could see his family in the stands, how emotional they were, his parents, his fiance, everybody just loving that. And, Kirsten Watson interviewed the family during the game and kind of got their feelings. And it was kind of a fun, candid interview. Outman's dad seemed to not totally pick up on cues of, all right, this is my last question, and I just want a pithy answer. And he kept going. And then his last answer ended up being kind of funny, too, because her last question was kind of a clunker, saying, well, he hit a home run in his first at bat. Is he going to do it in his next at bat, too? And his response was, is this your first baseball game? And so, he didn't mean it in a condescending way, just, baseball's hard, even when it looks easy to people kind of way. You mentioned being the first player since Joey Gallo to do something, 3 RBIs maybe. He also is the first player since Joey Gallo to finish a triple shy of the cycle in his major league debut, only the eighth player ever, and only I did, I mentioned the other day, I kind of think of the expansion era as real baseball, and he's only the fifth one in that, or sixth one in that era. Roberto Pena in 1965, George Wright in 1982, Kosuke Fukudome in 2008, JP Arancibia in 2010, and then Joey Gallo in 2015. So some of those guys ended up pretty okay, and yeah, it was fun for him. Obviously, he's probably not going to bat 750 with a 2500 OPS or whatever it is for the whole season. That would be a record. But uh, the thing about Outman that turned him into a prospect is he was a glove first guy, and in the last year or two, he has learned how to hit. He has become a hitter, and there's an article or two about that this weekend. But yeah, he has turned himself into a good hitter, and I think he has potential to be a real major leaguer, which is pretty exciting for him and for us.
Yeah, we'll see. What happens there. I jokingly tweeted, send the tape to DC. Outman, he's a little bit older, but still a guy who could help a major league ball club. Could be one of those guys. Just a quick note on that because someone similar last year, Zach Rex, is playing in Korea now. I think. He's already been raking over there, so I think it was a good move on his end.
For sure. That one's exciting for him too, for Rex, because he's actually getting paid. He's a big leaguer in Korea and getting paid like a big leaguer. So I'd take that over playing in the minors in the U.S. any day.
Yeah. The rest of the weekend, Trey Turner is back at it with a hit streak. I think he's up to 18 games now. It feels like Trey Turner's always at a hit streak that's in the double digits at this point, and he pretty much the entire Dodger career he has been. It's been an entire year since the Dodgers traded for Scherzer and Trey Turner. And I think Trey Turner's numbers over like 152 games. He was hitting like 320, 26 homers, 100 some RBIs, almost a 7 WAR. So it's been a pretty good deal for the Dodgers in terms of that. And other stuff we'll get into good starting pitching and maybe not as great starting pitching. Julio and Tyler Anderson looked really good. Clayton Kershaw, Tony Gonslin, not as great. Also not as aided by defense as they maybe could have been. But all in all, Dodgers took 3 out of 4, so there's not too much to be concerned about. And Will Smith, who had struggled out of the gate after the All-Star break, he had 6 RBI in the 4 games, and basically was the guy putting the Dodgers ahead in the first inning just about every game.
Yeah, he looked like the Will Smith of old, even with some struggles on Sunday. Struck out 3 times. One of them was definitely an umpire strikeout, and but overall in the 4-game series, he looked really good. I think he had up 6 for 17, I think, on the weekend, and you'll take that, and that's what we expect from Will Smith. And it was nice to see him back hitting the ball hard, and it wasn't a Coors Field thing. Coors Field affects once you do hit it, how far is it going to go, and how likely is it to drop in, all that. But he was hitting hardline drives, and hardline drives play in any stadium.
Yeah, we're going to talk about some of that pitching. We're talking about Gonslin and a little bit to that extent Kershaw. After we talk about LinkedIn, because as you gear up for the fall, you need the right people on your team to help your small business fire on all cylinders. And LinkedIn Jobs is here to make it easier for you to find people you want to talk to faster and for free. Create a free job post in minutes on LinkedIn Jobs to reach your network and beyond to the world's largest professional network of over 810 million people. Then add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring so your network can help you find the right people to hire. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. That's why small businesses have ranked LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. And did you know every week nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn? Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonmlb. That's linkedin.com/lockedonmlb to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every day. Trade deadline is August 2nd. That's Tuesday. Locked On MLB has all the breakdowns, and we, Locked On Dodgers, will have our rapid reactions to any move made. So subscribe now to Locked On Dodgers on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you can get notified when each episode premieres. All right, Jeff. So Tony Gonslin, we talked about it after his last start. We talked about it after his start right before the All-Star break. We talked about it briefly in his All Star, but that's now 4 straight times on the mound that Tony Gonslin has been not as good as he was the entire regular season before that. We had already talked about potential regression just in the sense of he wasn't going to pitch to like a 1.50 ERA the entire season. Is this the Gonslin we're going to get that we've seen the last few times? Is the first half Gonslin going to come back, or are we kind of searching for something in the middle?
Yeah, I assume it's in the middle. He in his first 16 starts of the season didn't allow more than 2 earned runs in a game, and now he has in 3 straight games. You mentioned 4 straight. Luckily, one of those didn't count because it was the All Star game. But yeah, in those last 3 regular season starts, his ERA has gone from 162 to 241, and I don't expect it to keep rising like that. But I do think we'll probably see several more games this year where Gonsolin does allow 2 runs or fewer. But we'll probably see another game or two. I definitely think he's better than what we're seeing here. We often stress don't get too high or too low about anything that happens in Colorado. And if this was an isolated game, yeah, we wouldn't be worried at all. We'd say, okay, Colorado, let's move on. But because it is his third straight start of some struggles, and one was against the Cardinals in St. Louis. The Cardinals are a good hitting team, uh, but another one was against the Nationals at Dodger Stadium, and the Nationals aren't really a good team. And the big concern is this is now 5 starts in a row that Gonsolin has allowed a home run after only allowing 5 home runs total in his first 14 starts. He's now, or 6 home runs total in his first 14 starts. He's now allowed one in each of the last 5 starts. And that's something to keep an eye on. That is, you could say where it's Coors Field, but I think the one that Severin, is that his name? Rockies catcher hit on Sunday was going to be gone anywhere. He hit that thing hard, and Gonsolin just threw a first pitch fastball down the middle, and he was ready for it. And so, Gonsolin after the game said he didn't feel like he made very many bad pitches, but he missed badly on a couple, missed middle with a couple pitches, and they made him pay on those ones. And I think that's watching the game. It is pretty accurate. His changeup, his splitter. I don't think he had total command of it. His fastball, actually, he threw it harder than he has sometimes this year. His slider looked pretty good, but the splitter is what caused him some issues. I think that didn't have the command of that, and he needs that to play off the other pitches. And so, I'm going to assume that this was. I don't think there's any major underlying problems that we need to worry about, but I do think when we talked, it's probably been a month and a half ago. We kind of guessed what do we think Gonsolin's final season statistics are going to be. And I said, I think we both kind of came down in the somewhere between 2.5 and 2.8 ish ERA for the season. And that's kind of what he's creeping up towards. And, I wouldn't be surprised if he finishes the season in the 2.3s, but I don't think he's going to go significantly down from where he is at 2.41 right now.
Yeah, and with the home runs, I mean, a lot of the ones that he has have been bad pitches or have been hangers. I mean, the ones, especially other than the Buxton one, I think almost all the other ones that I remember were either fastballs in a not great spot or trying to get by, and then a couple hangers, and so that's easily fixable. Or sometimes you just make those mistakes, and that happens. The one thing I do think about is, innings wise, he's up there. Most innings I think he's ever thrown, or at least in a few years since 2019. That's when he threw the most innings his career before this year. And it's a wonder if the Dodgers get someone at the deadline, or if not. I mean, they have Pepio, they have Mitch White down there who can come up and make a start. I wonder if it's a point where they try to get him some rest here in the next few weeks and maybe get a Phantom IL stint just to refresh his arm a little bit. He did throw his hardest pitch of the season last night or yesterday in yesterday's game at 96, and that was on his 90th pitch of the game. But I do think, maybe he could be used, or especially with All-Star and everything else, he didn't really get a full break. Maybe he gets that little bit of break here in the next few weeks, especially since the Dodgers have such a big lead.
Yeah, and I think maybe his recent struggles actually help him in that regard because if he still had an ERA in the 1.6 range, I don't think the Dodgers would consider a phantom IL stint simply because he would be in the running for the Cy Young Award. And at this point, with how Sandy Alcantara has pitched and how the big disparity in innings pitched, Alcantara is clearly the front runner for Cy Young Award, and I think that maybe makes it easier for the Dodgers to do something like say, "Hey, Tony, take a couple starts off, since you're not, everybody understands the Dodgers are pretty good at buying in on our goal is to win the last game in October, not to win any individual awards or specific games in the regular season. But it's even easier when you're not chasing a personal award like that. And so, yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all to see him take a little break, whether that is because they add a pitcher at the trade deadline or, Pepio or White or somebody, but, or even if they just went to a 6-man rotation again for a little while. Uh, yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if Gonslin could benefit from a little bit of a rest.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. Dodgers did make a trade over the weekend. A very small trade, but a trade that could play out depending on how things go. And they traded away Zach McKinstry and they acquired Chris Martin from the Cubs. And the guy, Chris Martin, the most Dodgers fans may remember as the guy that was pitching when Cody Bellinger hit the go-ahead home run in Game 7 of the 2020 NLCS. But yeah, Jeff, I mean, the Dodgers got a reliever. It's one of those where it's not a game-changing reliever. He's a guy that's going to fill in toward the back of the bullpen, maybe even take over in like a Phil Bickford type role. But it's still, improving along the margins, especially the way the Dodgers bullpen has been the last few weeks and how some of the guys have struggled a little bit. And, you just want to make sure you have as many arms as possible in order to just deploy the ones that end up working out.
Yeah, and Chris Martin has been a good reliever at times in his career. Uh, this year he has struggled a little bit. Really, 2020 is his only great season, and that was, as you know, a shortened season. But he's always been a guy who will be, ERA plus a little bit above average, which is misleading for relievers. You really to be a good reliever, you got to have an ERA plus in the 150-ish range to even be considered. And other than 2020, his career best ERA plus is 148, and so he's a solid reliever. I do think he has some raw stuff that it wouldn't shock me if the Dodgers can kind of get the most out of him, like they have with some guys. Difference is Chris Martin's not young; he's 36 years old, and so it's not a young guy with raw stuff that hasn't been tapped yet. It's a guy trying to find it again, but he does have good stuff, and so I'm fairly optimistic about that. I don't know if you heard he has the same name as the lead singer of Coldplay. Did you hear that?
Yeah, I did hear that.
Huh. Yeah. Only 8 million times on Twitter. I tweeted a joke about that. Look, people, I don't expect you to think my jokes are funny. My wife doesn't even think my jokes are funny. I just expect you to recognize that they're jokes. Like that's all I ask. That's not too much, is it, Vince?
No, not too much.
All right. Yeah, but yeah,
But
I'll miss Zach McKinstry. But yeah, McKinstry didn't really have a spot on this Dodger team anyway.
yeah, he'd been up a few times and for extended times this year, and wasn't really playing even with the Dodgers. The Dodgers have a little bit more locked in lineup than they have in the past. Freddie Freeman's been in every day. Trey Turner's been every day. Gavin Lux is pretty much in every day at this point. Justin Turner and Muncie's pretty much in every day. Will Smith behind the plate. You got Mookie in the outfield, Cody in center, and then left field and injuries have been really the only times they've moved people around or tried different things. So there wasn't room for him. I talked to the guys from Locked On Cubs to kind of tell them what they could expect from McKinstry, and what I kind of said was they're about to trade Ian Happ, and Zach McKinstry could probably be an Ian Happ light version, or potentially move up to the point where Ian Happ had been a guy who had a lot of hype, came in, kind of struggled, then was kind of okay, and then this year he's having a good year. Zach McKinstry could be a guy who in a couple of years ends up having a decent year where, he could maybe find trade value for himself in a few years when his time is up. But yeah, didn't fit on this team for sure. And then especially if the Dodgers go out and make moves, they just needed to clear some spots on the 40-man roster and in just the clutter a little bit.
Yeah, and I'm happy for McKinstry. Obviously, as a player, it sucks to go from a team with World Series aspirations to a bad team. except for the fact that you get to play more on a bad team. And I think McKinstry will see a lot more playing time, and that's good. I hope that he has a lot of success. It's kind of like the Matt Beatty trade for me. I think Beatty's a good hitter. He's been hurt most of this year, so we haven't gotten to see that with the Padres. I think McKinstry is a good hitter and a passable defender at a few different positions. And I think, with the Dodgers, even if they do, have to pull the plug on the Muncy thing or something, and a spot opens up, it was unlikely that McKinstry was going to be the one to fill that spot. And so, and with the emergence of Trace Thompson and Jake Lamb as bench players, there's really, McKinstry almost, you had to trade him. It's like, well, what are you going to do? And we've talked a little bit about the upcoming 40-man roster clutter, and this helps a little bit with that. And all in all, it's kind of a win-win-win, even if Chris Martin doesn't turn into anything.
Yeah. All right. We'll get into some more trade deadline talk. The Dodgers haven't done anything else, but they have been linked to a few things. So we'll get into it. First, let's talk about betonline.net because they're the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs. Find all your favorite sports and events at the number one online source for odds, lines, and games. Find reviews and news for every league, including MLB, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline is your top online resource for your sports wagering information from live in-game betting, scores, and podcasts. They have you covered. Head to BetOnline on your laptop or mobile device today to check it out. Check out the odds, check out the action, check out what's happening today. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right. So Dodgers, like I said, they made that one trade, but one of their trade targets was also traded on Friday, and the Dodgers trade was Saturday. But either way, one of the Dodgers trade targets was traded on Friday, and that was Luis Castillo. He went to the Mariners for a pretty strong package, something that the Dodgers probably wouldn't have wanted to do, considering that the Mariners gave up a prospect that was ranked top 25 consensus in all of baseball around a lot of different consensus. So, yeah. But, yeah, Jeff, Castillo's out, and, what does that mean for the Dodgers? Frankie Montas, the Dodgers haven't really been linked to him other than the Dodgers could look for starting pitching. I believe there was a report by Heyman that said that they were in on him or at least interested or whatever wording it was. Ken Rosenthal didn't have the Dodgers listed as the teams talking about Montas right now. But with Luis Castillo out, does that mean the Dodgers are out on starting pitching at this point?
It might, simply because, like you said, the price that the Mariners paid to get Castillo was so high. And now Castillo was the best starting pitcher available on the market. And so it's not like, well, that now we know what the A's would get for Frankie Montas or whatever. But we do kind of have an idea of the market. And Noelvi Marte, the top prospect the Mariners traded, is very similar to Diego Cartaya in some ways. Age is about the same. Current level that they're playing at is about the same. Rough ranking level in the prospect list is about the same. And they both play a premium defensive position. Marte is a shortstop, Cartaya is a catcher, but, very, very similar. And so if basically if the Dodgers equivalent is like if they had traded Cartaya and, Pepio and Landon Knack or something, which is it's a hefty price to pay for a starting pitcher. I don't think, and I think you mentioned this on Friday, I don't think the Dodgers are going to trade Diego Cartaya unless it is a blockbuster trade for, a guy like Juan Soto or Shohei Ohtani. And the Mariners did pull the trigger on that. And so if the A's are looking for a Cartaya type prospect, I don't think the Dodgers are going to do that. Now, maybe there's still Tyler Mahle from the Reds, who is the lesser version of Luis Castillo, the Reds' worst starting pitcher that they could trade. And maybe because the Reds have already gotten some really good prospects, maybe they're more realistic in their pricing on Mahle. I can see that going either way. I can see the Dodgers going for a pitcher like that, somebody whose cost isn't going to be quite so high. Noah Syndergaard's probably on the trading block. That one wouldn't shock me. There's a few. I do think the Dodgers are going to try to address their pitching, but I don't think they're going to overpay to do it.
Yeah, and especially when it comes to starting pitching, even with Gonslin struggles, he's still been, serviceable. You got Gonslin, you got Kershaw, you got Julio, you got Heaney back, you got Tyler Anderson, you got Dustin May, who may be one more rehab start away from joining the big league team. He's still holding out hope for Bueller later in the year. So, and then you got Pepio if you don't trade him, and you got Mitch White, who's pretty serviceable. So with the Dodgers, the way they have things set up, especially with their lead in the division, they're in a good spot to where, okay, if you don't really need a starting pitcher, you don't have to go after one. You have enough guys. It's just a matter of can those guys step up in October and, provide you at least two times through a lineup, is really all most teams ask for these days. Anything else is kind of, cherry on top. And when it comes down to the other side of it, Frankie Montas, some people believe he was better or is better than Castillo. Some people don't believe that. So, depending on what side of the tree you are, it's just a matter of will he command that much? Will the injury take out a little bit since he did have a little bit of an arm issue just a month ago? So, yeah, I think the Dodgers could find their way, like you said, a Tyler Mahle or a lower arm, but I do think they'll maybe try to go wherever they go, it's going to be with the push for the bullpen. Whether it's they could get for a low end starter to push somebody to the bullpen, or they end up getting a bullpen arm that kind of pushes somebody out of the bullpen. But they're kind of set up there in terms of other kind of links they've had. They were linked to Brandon Drury from the Reds for offense. They're supposedly one of the three teams in the running for Soto still with the Cardinals and Padres. And they did make a call on Otani, but the Angels aren't going to do that, especially to the Dodgers. So it seems like it's Juan Soto or bust in a certain sense in terms of like big game-changing deals. Other than that, it's going to be the Dodgers trying to improve on the margins, which is not a bad thing when you're a team that's on pace for 109 wins.
Yeah, exactly. Dodger on pace for 109 wins. Like you said, they're looking for somebody who can have an impact in October. Juan Soto is definitely that guy. And there are some pitchers who could be that guy if the price is right. But, when you think about it, in 2017, the Dodgers traded for that guy, thinking, okay, this guy can be Dodgers didn't need help in 2017. By the trade deadline, they were already in really good position. But they got Yu Darvish for the postseason. And in case you have a short memory, that did not work out well. In last year, they got Max Scherzer for the postseason, and obviously for the regular season push too. They were being pushed by the Giants, but the Dodgers were going to make the postseason anyway last year by the trade deadline. It was just a question of whether they won the division or not. They got Max Scherzer to add that stability for the postseason rotation, and then that didn't work out. Scherzer couldn't take the ball in the NLCS, and say what you will about the Astros cheating in 2017. Say what you will about Scherzer being used in relief last year. The fact is, neither of those trades guaranteed the World Series championship you were looking for. And really, the 2020, the Dodgers didn't make any huge deals. Obviously, they got Mookie Betts before the season, but they didn't make any huge midseason deals, and they won the World Series. And so there are a lot of ways to win in the postseason. And the one sure way to win in the postseason is to score more runs than your opponents. And you could do that by allowing fewer or scoring more, or a combination of the two. Like you said, the Dodgers are on pace for 109 wins, which means they're pretty good at doing both of those things. I just want to give a quick update on some math that I did a couple weeks ago. I did this during the All-Star break, talked about what the Padres would have to do to catch the Dodgers. Well, things have only gotten better since then, folks. We've knocked another week and a half off the calendar, and we have extended that lead by a couple games. Dodgers are now ahead of the Padres by 12 games. The Dodgers are on pace for 109 wins, which if the Dodgers get to 109, the Padres would have to go 52-7 the rest of the way to catch the Dodgers. If the Dodgers go one game under 500 the rest of the way, they have 61 games left. If they go 30-31, the Padres would have to go 41-18 just to catch the Dodgers. And that's if the Dodgers play poorly the rest of the season, which means we are a week or two away from being able to realistically say the Dodgers will win the division, even if the Padres go undefeated the rest of the year. And, they won't have it mathematically clinched until September sometime, but the Dodgers are going to win the division, and everything else is about jockeying for playoff position and jockeying for home field advantage throughout the NL side of the postseason and ideally throughout the entire postseason.
Yeah, one name real quick I will throw out there that's been named twice today as someone who the team is listening on is Josh Hader. Dodgers have been linked to Josh Hader in the past. Obviously, Craig Kimbrell, as you saw over the weekend, continued to not have clean innings. So if the Dodgers do make a surprise move, I would say Josh Hader could be thrown into that mix. The Brewers want some, hitters, maybe you know, it might cost a Pajes or maybe a Vargas, and you could quibble about what that means or if that's worth it. But I do think Josh Hader is going to be a name that's going to be linked to the Dodgers here in the next couple of days.
Yeah, and that would be interesting. He's having by far the worst season of his career, and he's the oldest he's ever been, mathematically speaking. Hashtag math. So that would be interesting, especially considering the Brewers are in first place and are a somewhat likely postseason opponent for the Dodgers. So uh, who knows what would happen there, but it would be interesting for sure.
Yeah. All right, that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you all for listening. Thanks for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen. Check out Locked On MLB with Paul Francis Sullivan as he brings humor, passion, and a unique perspective on every team and the biggest stories around the league. Follow the number one daily league-wide podcast wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, Locked On MLB. We will be back tomorrow talking Dodgers, talking trade deadline. Trade deadline is Tuesday, so if there's any big trades, I'm sure we'll have something in a quick analysis type of format, and then we'll have the longer analysis here on Locked On Dodgers in the morning. So that's what we're going to be here the next 2 days, looking and waiting and refreshing Twitter. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers first listen. Check us out on social media, Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Dodgers. Jeff is on Twitter at Snider. I'm at Vince Samperio. DMs are open on all those accounts if you need to get a hold of us. You can also get a hold of us via email, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or via voicemail text at 323-863-5625. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be with us. When you get in your car, if you're at home, tell your smart device, play podcast, Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.
And we'll talk to you tomorrow.